So when I think of something, I try to create a video as quickly as possible so that I can capture my thoughts and share them with you. You have noticed that I don't do any editing, and my videos don't have anything fancy techniques. It's just simple. Here are some facts. Think about them, and hopefully you will see what I see. So I got a newsletter in the mail from a local school district here in Ohio. One school district. One. And I'm showing you the breakdown that was given in the newsletter about federal funds that they received for our favorite topic. I'm not even going to say the name of the topic, and the reason is things are programmed to pick up on different words. So if you look carefully, you will see $888,631 cleaning supplies, $531,082 instructional supplies, substitutes and leave pay, extra leave pay, $107,782, transportation, $14,300, federal funds for expended for the school district year 2020 to 21. Good heavens sakes. That's a lot of money for just one lonesome school district. Now imagine the amount of federal funds going out in all directions for our favorite subject. There are massive outpourings of federal funds. Now, why is that true? The figures will be astronomical, and I'm going to tie it in with my very first video that I ever made. A few years ago, I saw this, and I dared to make a video, and no one paid attention to it for the longest time. It's very simple, and you can still view it. You go to War Backwards is Raw and just go to the very first video I ever made called The 80-Year War Cycle. So, in the year 1781, the American Revolution War ends. Now the Treaty of Paris will be in 1783, but for all practical purposes, hostilities are over with in 1781. So take 1781 and add 80, 1861. Civil War begins. Add 80 to 1861, 1941. World War II begins. Add 80 to 1941, 2021. World War III. Against something invisible and, I might say, non-existent. So, it is definitely part of the 80-year war cycle. Now, there's actually a little more to this. And I haven't really done too much on this channel with it, but on my other channel, I think War Backwards is Raw, I will go over these other cycles. There are basically 3 cycles. The first one I explained to you is to get the nation in some type of a war every 80 years. Now I know folks will leave a comment and say, well, what about the other wars like World War I, etc.? Well, I'm going to answer that generally speaking and not too specifically speaking, because right at the moment it's late at night and I don't have the time to go into it, and all my facts and figures are kind of buried elsewhere. But I did go over this in my other channel, War Backwards is Raw. So there are 3 cycles. I just showed you the one that's most visible and easy to see, the 80-year war cycle. But there are 2 other cycles that coincide with it. So basically you're looking at history progressing with 3 cycles in America. Okay? And what are the 3 cycles? The 3 cycles are, first of all, the war cycle. Secondly, what I call the corp cycle. And that's the formation of a corporation. And the 3rd cycle is a con cycle. Now, con meaning deception, but standing for the word Constitution. And yes, the Constitution was a con. Everybody wants to quote it about the original Constitution. But originally people were conned, even in the original Constitution. But as these cycles take place, the 80-year war cycle, which I showed you, there's another cycle called the corp cycle, the corporation formation. A corporation is formed and then done with, and then another one starts later. And so we might be in about the 4th corporation. I'm not sure. That one's a little hard to pinpoint. And another one that is, these are hard to pinpoint, but they're there. The other cycle is the con cycle, the Constitution. It's rewritten and redone. Now they look similar. The corporations look similar. And all they need to do is not capitalize a letter. And that creates an entire new corporation. But it looks identical to the previous one. Same thing with the Constitution. Just the changing of one letter. Whether it's capital or small. Or one little word, then that creates the new Constitution. So these 3 things go together. And so in the American Revolution war cycle, it was a certain corporation which was under England at the time, and then the ones where this really started would be 1871. This really got started about 1871. Now this thing started in 1781. There might be something about the 8s and the 1s in terms of numerology. And the Constitution cycle is in there too. So you have 3 different cycles occurring and coinciding with one another. The war cycle, the corporation cycle, and the Constitution cycle. And then that is what brings about the economic life of America, which is always a disaster for just its average, quote, citizen. Always. It's always beneficial to, guess what? Corporations. Corporations thrive on these three cycles. And then, of course, the ultimate beneficiary of all of it is England, or what we call the Crown. The Crown is really just a large corporation functioning in the city of London, the small, tiny city of London, not the major, large metropolis we know as London. And then, of course, even behind all that comes Rome, or the Vatican. Now that's a little bit hidden in these cycles, Vatican. But ultimately, the beneficiaries on all these cycles are, first of all, the corporations in America, and then secondly, the major corporation of America, of the United States, which is actually under the rubric of the city of London. And so it is England that prospers. And who is involved in that major corporation and that secret group? But the bloodlines, the descendants of the rulers of previous generations and previous centuries, okay? And then that is oversaw by, guess what? Rome, the Vatican. So you have basically three large phallic symbols: the Washington Monument, the United States. Then you have a large phallic symbol in the city of London by the Thames River. And then you have a large phallic symbol in the Vatican in Rome. Now all three of those tie together, and all three of those are the beneficiaries of these three cycles in America. So the 80-year war cycle, the corporation cycle, and the Constitution cycle. Now once again, all this began for me, and you got a lot there, all right? All this began for me when I saw this in the local school newsletter of the amount of money that was poured out for what? Nothing! And guess what that's going to do to you and me? Drive prices up off the wall. Inflation will become rampant. And ultimately, the citizen pays the costs by his dollars or her dollars. And no one else pays the cost except common folk like me and like you. I have good news for you. Jesus is coming back. The devil will try to implement the system, but it will ultimately fail, because Christ is the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. Be watching for His return. I'd like to end with that joyful good note that you belong to Christ and not this world. Thank you for watching this video. End of video.